So we got the NPD results for January, which usually includes a holiday slump of some kind. Of course, most people spend all of their money in December, generally maxing out credit cards or emptying an account that's saved up specifically for Christmas. And then generally the first, week or so is more people spending their gift cards, things like that, and it goes into a bit of a slump. However, you're going to see on this NPD report that it looks like this is probably the best January in a couple years, which probably has to do with things like Monster Hunter, the Switch existing as opposed to not existing for the past couple years, and then Dragon Ball Fighterz. All of this had a lot to do with what happened in January, and it looks like this January was very big for the gaming industry altogether. There are rankings which we will show you, but keep in mind, everyone did well. There was no one who fell off badly. In fact, we're going to get into the results, and you're going to see between revenue of all three hardware manufacturers, that includes Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, only 3% actually separated the first from third. 3% in terms of revenue. So don't worry about that. Everyone did well. Now let's take a look at the charts. What you're seeing here is the top 20 of all the games that sold in January, mostly physical. There are some things they can't track. Like, I can't track, for example, eShop sales from what I've seen. That's why you see little stars and asterisks next to certain ones. But at the top, as you would expect, Monster Hunter World, it was on the PS4, the Xbox One. They did say this is the largest release for Monster Hunter ever in the United States. This is it. As we expect, it was geared towards the West, right? The other Monster Hunters are more geared towards the Japanese crowd. This one is obviously more geared towards the Western crowd. So yes, it did take number one. Big for that franchise. We did hear Capcom said a little while ago that they had shipped 6 million units, and it's looking like a lot of them did go to the United States. Below that, though, Dragon Ball Fighterz took number two. Both of these games beat out Call of Duty WW2, which generally still stays pretty strong around this time, actually. So that is still pretty good there. Keep in mind, though, two Japanese-based games took the top two spots in the American NPDs, the American sales charts. That's great, though, for Bandai Namco, obviously, doing really well here, and then Capcom doing well at the top. Capcom really needed a big win. Monster Hunter World appears to be that. Number 4 was PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Of course, they sold these physically in stores, but they just came with a code, I believe. It wasn't even an actual copy of the game in terms of a disc. So those still obviously did pretty well. Grand Theft Auto 5, I can't believe this thing. It's never going away. It's number 5 in the sales charts, and there's some way below it that is hard to believe. Like NBA 2K18 is a yearly series, and it's number 6. Mario Odyssey at number 7, Breath of the Wild number 8, and then Mario Kart number 9. You got a little trifecta of Nintendo games right there, rounding out the top 10, along with Madden NFL 18. Now, you're going to notice Star Wars Battlefront 2 is not in the top 10. Now, that I think should be pretty obvious now, as a lot of people were very soured on Battlefront 2. So the sales, where they were competing with something like Call of Duty, and you can see where Call of Duty is and Battlefront 2, I think if EA did not pull the shenanigans they did, I think Battlefront 2 would be a little closer to World War II, probably in the top 5, honestly, if they didn't do what they did with the loot boxes and everything. Below that, Assassin's Creed Origins, UFC 3, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, which has seen a resurgence, by the way, with the work that Ubisoft has put into this, so that's great. FIFA 18, Dragon Ball Xenoverse at number 16. That's actually kind of interesting, Xenoverse. I assume that's supposed to be Xenoverse 2? That's weird. Okay, Xenoverse. The Sims 4, Splatoon 2 down at number 18, Dissidia, Final Fantasy NT, and then Need for Speed Payback. And then here are all the numbers here that we're going to take a quick look at. The total overall for spend, $1.096 billion. That is up 59% from $690 million in January of 2017. That's big. Hardware up 119%, $278 million, up from last year, from $127 million. Now, they did say that the Switch has a lot to do with it, but overall, it just seems like Monster Hunter and even Dragon Ball Fighterz helped to really propel some of these sales in terms of systems, which is great. PC console software, $517 million, up 51% from $343 million, and then the accessories, $301 million, up 37% from $220 million. The January sales of the $278 million is the highest that they've achieved since $323 million sold in 2011. So keep in mind, this is the best we've seen gaming do in 7 years or so. It's pretty impressive. Over 1 million units of hardware between all the systems sold in January 2018. That is also the highest since that 2011. So this is the best January gaming has seen in the past 7 years, and that is impressive. positive, and it's great to see gaming doing this well in a month when generally sales are down, right? Now, it does help that the Switch is there, whereas we've been seeing the Wii U for a while now, which did not really pull its weight in the NPDs, as I think most of us realize by now. And even, like I said, the Xbox, while we don't usually get actual sales reported from Microsoft, seems to actually be doing pretty well here. In terms of revenue, the PS4 did the best in the month, but in terms of actual hardware sales, the Switch did do the best. Now, if you look at revenue, it actually went PS4, Switch, and then Xbox. If you look at hardware units, it went Switch, PS4, and then Xbox One. But keep in mind, for the revenue, 3% separated, in this case, the PS4 from the Xbox One brand. So very, very close race, and it just seems like everyone won in terms of the company. Everyone made money, which is good. It's good to see that, because we don't want to see these companies losing money, because that means that there would be a problem, right? And in this case, Monster Hunter did great. Capcom has to be like super excited, really excited about this, and that's good to see, because I really was concerned about Capcom there for a little while, but it looks like their time in the Monster Hunter world, their choice, or at least their decision to make it multi-platform and put it on some of the biggest audiences they could. I mean, the PC is still coming, so they have another burst of sales there, and then more than likely they are designing some kind of Monster Hunter for the Switch. They'll get sales there. So overall, it looks like Capcom made the right decision here, made a ton of money, and we'll see what happens with the PC version, because that seems to be the next Monster Hunter that we know of coming out. It'll, of course, be World, but I'm sure, like we saw with something like Final Fantasy 15, probably have extra graphical functions, things like that. So overall, good job, Capcom. Also, if we want to take a look at what I think personally is the best looking Dragon Ball game, if you're into that kind of fighter, you probably think it's the best fighting game. I really like the Budokai series, so that's me. I also kind of like the Xenoverse now too, but I understand why some people would like that tag-in kind of Marvel vs. Capcom style gameplay. But if you're looking at how this is performed compared to other Dragon Ball iterations, believe it or not, this is the second best seller in its first month, only being outsold by the first Budokai that came out on the PS2. Do you remember when that came out? That thing was everywhere. People were buying it like crazy. I love that first Budokai, by the way. I remember I actually bought it on the GameCube even when it came out, because they added extra features. Anyway, this is the best Dragon Ball selling game in terms of fighting games, or just Dragon Ball games in general, that has come out since then, since 2002 when that Budokai launched. So there you go. Arc System Works and Bandai Namco had a big win here as well with Dragon Ball Fighterz. The other thing I want to point out that's kind of under the radar to a lot of people, I think it probably will go on to be under the radar, is the 3DS. It performed pretty well here, believe it or not, in terms of units or even sales. This is the best it's done since 2014 and then 2013 for hardware and then sales. This is pretty good for a system that a lot of people have counted out at this point, because the Switch is now out. I understand why Nintendo is still having a hard time specifically leaving it behind or saying that they are moving on. That install size is massive at over 70 million. So of course, third-party companies want to keep putting stuff on it, because in terms of development, it's down, the costs are down there, when as opposed to making a big game for the Xbox, the PS4, even the Switch at this point. And it's just, it seems like it's still selling. I mean, seriously, this means that it outsold it for 2016, 2015, and then in 2014. That was the last time it did this well. So this is something else with the 3DS. This is seriously a tough decision for Nintendo, but I do think, as most people have, I mean, I kind of said this a while ago though, I feel like it'll slow down as the next Pokemon game comes out on the Switch. I think that's the last thing that 3DS owners are holding on to, is that Pokemon game. But there'll still be a lot of people that probably want to go back and play some of these older Pokemon games, and they need to get a 3DS for it, right? So I kind of at least understand why it's still selling, but I do think that install size will start to kind of wane off a little bit, at least in terms of its growth, because when that Pokemon game comes to the Switch, I think a lot of the people buying 3DSs now will instead put that in a drawer and then buy a Switch to get on the new Pokemon game. And that's the NPDs for January. You guys are going to have to let me know what you think about really the sales, where everything charted. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to say in the comments that they're happy about Battlefront 2 falling so much, especially after hearing that EA is bringing back the loot boxes. I mean, they shipped 8 million, I think, pretty recently is what they said in their investors meeting, so it's not like they didn't just not sell any. They still sold quite a bit. For a lot of games, that is a massive blowout success. We just talked about Monster Hunter shipping 6 million, and that's a great success for them. Although they're not paying for that Star Wars license that I think is costing EA a pretty penny, but still, Battlefront 2 falling out of the top 10, I think is a pretty big deal, even though I think some people wanted it to fail. I know EA desperately wanted it to work, and it's just been a train wreck. Those microtransactions will come back sooner than later to just try to get any kind of money they can out of it. and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I could see it really fall off the NPD top 20. I'm not even kidding. If that happens and people are just fed up with the microtransactions, you will see this game really start to disappear in the next coming 2 months maybe on the NPDs, and WW2 is still up there in the top 3. So what could have been for Battlefront 2 if it hadn't tried to pull what it did? It's hard. We'll never know. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I'm very curious what you think about where everything charted, how the systems did, the money coming in. It seems like gaming is very healthy right now. That is good. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning for Newswave, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.